Welcome back to the shop. Cold New Year's Day, so Happy New Year if you're watching this anytime soon. Had a couple of projects that I wanted to do on the VW, and one of them I don't have the right bolts for. I was going to build the adapter to go from the back of the crank to the mag, and I had Kassler tap the back of the crank when he built the crank, and he tapped those at 5/16 24 thread. And I need some socket head cap screws to do this, and I don't have any. Nobody in town had any, so I'm gonna have to wait on that for a little bit. So the other thing I wanted to do was work on the front seal, or the prop seal. And the way the plans are, the original method was to just glue the seal onto the front of the motor. I really didn't like that idea. I mean, it would work, probably work fine. But if you have to split the case, you have to take it apart. You got to break the seal loose from the case because it's going to be glued to both sides. And that was just annoying sounding. And then you're probably going to have to get a new seal because you'll have all this glue, epoxy, or whatever you use stuck to the seal. And the seal doesn't come off easy because the prop hub is pressed on to the crank. So as long as you never had to take anything apart, it would work great. But the way my luck goes, I'll probably have to take something back apart. So I wanted to build an adapter that would clamp in the case, and then the seal would press into that. And that way, if you split the case, it would just stay on the crank, no damage to anything, put it right back. So I got to looking on the internet. I guess that's already a thing. People are already doing that. But then I looked at my case, and that's going to require some machine work. All right, we have our prop hub here. And here's the seal. Prop hub goes in there, and this would be how the seal would be mounted on the engine if you wanted to just epoxy around that. You could do that. I wanted to have just like a spacer, turned it down to where the one end fits in here, like clamp fit in here. You could put a little sealant on that, then a flat to expand it out, and then another cup on this side to actually press the seal in, and it will hold it in place. Sounds like a good idea, except when this is pressed on here, this diameter is only, I think it was 30 thousandths less than this. So it's a real close fit in there. Not enough to build anything to fit in there to clamp it. So problem number one was this would have to be enlarged. Problem number two, this step right here is the same diameter as the hole also. So it doesn't give me any room to put anything in between. So what I'm going to do is split the case, take the crank and the cam back out, which is no problem. I was going to have to do that anyway, but I'm going to take this and put it in the mill, and I'm going to flatten this out and bring it back a little bit. And see, it's got a lip there, got plenty of meat on the inside. From the original casting, stuff's not even anyway, so I figured I'd flatten that whole face out, make it even, and then we'll go in and bore this hole out just enough that I can get an adapter that I build to go in there. So, right now, I need to take it apart and head over to the mill. Crank is out, gives you a better idea. See how it's stepped right there and there? I think if I take that all down and flatten it out, that should give me enough clearance. And while I had it apart, I actually got the right case studs in it. I found the other set of short ones, so we got all the right case studs in it now. So let's get this over to the mill. Seems like every time I try to do a machine project, I don't have the right tools. So I need to flatten that out. I was going to use a fly cutter here. Buddy gave me this fly cutter the other day, but its shank is too big. It's got a straight shank on it to go like in a drill chuck. Well, my drill chuck only goes to 1/2 inch, so that doesn't work. My straight deal for holding end mills is only 3/8, so that won't work. I tried to mount that in the lathe so I could trim the shank down to 1/2 inch. Well, you can't get a hold of this the way it's shaped. So I was going to drill all the way through it. Well, of course, that's in the way. So I used an end mill to go in and make a flat So now I can drill through the center of it and hopefully mount it in there somehow that I can turn that shank down. And then we can get back to working on the V-dub. Well, I'm making some progress. I was able to drill a hole all the way through there. I have that on a 1/4 inch reamer. The rest of the reamer stuck up in the chuck. Centered it on this end, and it's up against the chuck here enough that it'll spin it. So now I can machine that down to 1/2 inch and get it in the chuck and get back to working on what I need to be working on. Well, as usual for this project, had to make a little change of plan. Got the fly cutter in there, no problem. Simply did not have enough clearance vertically. I thought this actually cranked up higher than it does to get that in there to smooth the end of the case off. It's still, I should be able to use that to enlarge the hole, but I couldn't flatten the end because I didn't have enough room to get it set on the slide table. So I couldn't move it. Now, stationary, fixing it, strap it down to the bed, I should be able to bore right through there and enlarge it. So what I did, and I know this sounds crude because it is crude, but I used a belt sander on the end of it. And while that's crude, as long as you take it slow and pay attention to what you're doing, and you use the little insert that you made to drill your magneto hole. Because remember, this fits in to the front main bearing. And as long as you keep that flat, you've got a flat hole. So that fits nice and tight all the way around. So when we make the seal adapter, got a nice flat surface here. It'll clamp in here once I enlarge that a little bit, and we can put some silicone right around here, stick it on there, and that should work sweet. But we should have enough clearance for where it to come up and flare out so then it can go back up for the seal. But we do need to enlarge this, and that's going to be the next project. And right here is why we've got to enlarge that. This end of the hub sticks down in there, and see, it's just, like I said, 30 thousandths. That little step there is right up against it and won't fit down any further. So while that's level there, now that I've milled it down, sanded it down, should be more like that. And that'll give me the area I need to expand the seal adapter. The reason I didn't turn this down, I'm going to open the case up a little bit, because there's not a terrible amount of meat there where the keyway is. And this hub only goes in about that far onto the crank. So that's got a lot of stress on it. And this is a press fit or heat shrink fit. So it will have outward pressure on it, and I don't want it to end up cracking right there. So we're not going to mess with this. Might smooth out that little lip there if needed, but we're going to enlarge that hole to make it fit. I think that would be definitely the wiser idea. And we are on to my next bit of machining crudeness. Yeah, this is all crude, but you got to consider that the original plan was just to glue the seal on the front with some epoxy. So we may be a step ahead of that. But really difficult to clamp that down, so I ran a strap around the bed of the mill. It is held tight. Started making a little cut. Man, it's looking good. So now I've just got to finish that out. That's going to take it from about 190 to about 2.1. 190, 2.1. Give me about an 80 thousandths wall thickness on that seal adapter. So let's cut that on through. That is within 10 thousandths of the 210 I was shooting for. So that's plenty close. Since I'll be building the piece to go in it, I'll just make it the perfect size. I'm pretty pleased. It all looks like it should work good. All right, now that we've got the case machined, we need to make the adapter piece. Found a piece of scrap. Should work good. The OD is big enough for the seal. ID is still smaller than this, so it should work. So right now I'm going to take it over to the bandsaw and cut a chunk off so we can get it in the lathe and start giving it some shape. All right, there's the ring. Just got done at the bandsaw. Just eyeballed the cut. It ended up being about 7/8 thick. Should give me plenty of room to machine it down however I want it. So now I need to get the chuck back on the lathe and start cutting. Okay, the piece is in the lathe. First step, we're going to face off the side that I cut so everything's nice and square. And since I was using the mill, I need to switch directions so it'll actually cut. Okay, now I'm going to start turning down the OD to get it closer to the size of the seal. And since the seal has that lip on it, I'll probably make the outside about the same diameter as that lip. Okay, the outside of that lip on that seal is 2.780. So I'm going to shoot for 2.80 on the outside diameter of this. I need another about 40 thousandths. Missed it by 3 thousandths. And that's not too bad making a 40 thousandths cut. For me at least. I usually try to sneak it in, but that was a non-critical dimension anyway, so that's just perfect. Now, what do I want to do? I think I will change tools and start enlarging the ID for the seal to go in. Well, I tried a new boring bar because my little one was chattering because it needs a new insert and I don't have any. But this thing was working pretty slick. So now I've just got to take most of this out, out to about there, to where it'll fit the seal nice and snug. Well, I was still having a little trouble cutting that because like I said, my boring bar needs a new tip. And it was just chattering like crazy. Made that in there look like kind of like plaid or like it was knurled. But figured out a new way to do it. I've turned this back like that. It's got a new tip on it. And with that, I can come in and face the back of it and bring it this way and enlarge the hole. Man, it works slick. So that's how I'm going to finish this out. Now, I don't know how well I've kept this secret, but I'm no machinist. I just have a lathe and kind of mess around seeing what I can come up with. But this seems to be working good. I'll have to remember it. It obviously wouldn't work in a small hole, but once you get out to this size, yeah, it works nice. And there we are. I kept creeping it in. There's like 5 thousandths interference fit, which I figure on a seal, since it can compress, as long as I make sure and press it in there nice and even and straight, should be good. I obviously don't want it too loose, have the seal come out. That looks like it should work fine. Now to bore out the innards and cut the other side to where it'll fit in the case. All right, I've marked out how far I want to cut in to leave a little meat there where it changes diameters. So we'll start cutting the outside down. Yeah, smoothed out the inside of the case with the flap wheel, where I had used the fly cutter on that. I loosened up the case bolts, and that would just slide in. Snug the case bolts back up. The gap is closed. Once she's in there tight. Should be about the way the oil pump goes in. So right now, and if I need to modify it a little bit when I'm during final assembly, that's not a problem. So right now, I need to take it back out, bore the inside out, narrow everything up, and it'll be done. Loosen that up. And out she comes. Okay, switch to the outside chuck so we can grab it from the outside. And since this hole's we're just enlarging the hole, I put the big boring bar back in because I don't have to worry about making a taper on the end now. So let's go to cutting it out. All right, there is the back side of it, thinned out. The OD will fit all the way around the prop hub. So now I'm going to put the seal in it. I was just going to press it all in one shot. And then I'm like, it's kind of thin where I'd be pushing. So I think I may work my way around and slide it on that way. Just a little bit at a time. And there we've got an installed seal. There's enough of a gap behind it that can keep some oil in there to keep the seal lubricated. So let's go put it on the front of the case. There you go. And that's going in there far enough that the hub is hitting the bearing journal. So that should be just perfect. So it's set just like that. Well, I have no doubt that gluing the seal onto the front of the engine would work just fine, but I like that better. So glad that's done. Should be able to, now that that's together, we should be able to put the crank together for the last time. I'll probably trim down that brass gear a little bit since it's not used anymore. Put the crank together. I still need to build the drive for the magneto. That will probably be next. Once I get that to where I want it, then I should be able to put the case together, hopefully. Well, until next time, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to keep up with this. See you on the next one.